Okay, I've already broke them loose. I'm just going to go in there and loosen them up by hand. You do not want to reuse these bolts. If you reuse these bolts, you will have problems. They don't require any Loctite. Only thing I did is I used some assembly lube, high pressure assembly lube on the bolts as they requested. You can use moly lube, assembly lube, engine oil. It don't really matter. I'll pull this one out. Also, the caps are not interchangeable, so do not pull out both of them at the same time, throw your caps into a box and go put it back together later. No, the caps are a match set. You can't interchange the caps. You're going to have problems there. And these bolts are a 12-point by 1/4 inch socket. It's odd, but they seem to hold and they seem to work. So pull your cap off to the side. Put your rod bolts to the side temporarily. I want to take a look at this cap. Let's wipe this off real quick. See how these rod bearings look. Not too bad. They actually look pretty dang good. I don't see any scoring in them. They've been heated a little bit, but they don't seem bad at all. So now I'll put that one to the side. Push this out of here. Push this out of the top. Drop one of the bolts. Give me 1 second. Okay. Now I'm going to move this camera up so you can see it being pulled out. Kind of just work it up. There we are. And there we are. That is an arc billet aluminum racing rod. Again, the bearing looks pretty good. No major damage. The pin still moves freely. You can still see a little residue of my high pressure engine lubricant where I put the circlips in on both sides. My piston looks pretty good. I don't see no damage. The only thing with these pistons is they were black nitrate coated. The whole skirts were black. As you see, it's worn off. You see a little bit here and on the edges, but it's completely worn off. So after you pull that out, you want to take your cap, you want to put it back on. Now on these rods, there is a dot on the cap. If I could find it. Yes, here they are. Okay, let's see if we can see this. You see the 2 dots at the bottom here? And this one's got 2 dots at the bottom. That's how you know how to line them up, which side they go, so you don't reverse them. So I'm just going to put these together like that and run my rod bolts in it so it's together. Another thing, do not lose these washers that come with this. You need the washers. They just screw them in enough to where they're not going to go anywhere, so you don't lose them. Misplace the cap. You don't swap caps around of different rods. And I do believe they made it. Arc made it, which I give them credit for. You can't swap the caps around because this rod will have 2 dots, and the other one will have 1 dot. That's my piston and rod assembly there. Put that to the side. Okay, now I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to turn the motor to the bottom. Undo these bolts. If it would let me. Let's try this. I got one going. Actually, this one's being a little bastard. Alright, what do we got going on here? Alright, I'm going to have to loosen them again. It ain't wanting to come loose. Alright, that should be loose. Should be able to get it out with my hands. It's not letting me. Alright. We do it this way then. Also too, you want to have a good quality inch-pound torque wrench. Don't go to Harbor Freight and buy one and then put a very expensive motor together and expect your bottom end to stay together. It's not going to happen. Very low chance of that. I had a torque wrench I used for work. It was from Harbor Freight. It was off by 10 foot-pounds. So imagine that in inch-pounds. That's a lot. So, and this is giving me a hard time. So I'm going to actually pause this and I'll get back to you when I get it out. Okay, so I pretty much got it out. Take a look at this one. Don't look too bad. Looks pretty good. Bearing looks pretty good. So that's good. I'm going to take this, push up from the bottom, push it away from the crank. If the crank's good, try to save them. But you need to measure them up again. Make sure they're still usable. Make sure you don't push too hard when you do this, so your piston and rod don't go flying out at you. That ain't no fun. I've done that with a stock motor. Thing went flying out on me. Alright. Here's our other rod. The bearing looks pretty good. A little dirty because of the oil. Bearings look good. The piston looks good. Again, I'm missing my black nitrate coating. My rings are all there. They're all free movable. They're not aligned, which is good. So the rod is pretty good. Piston's pretty good. So I'm going to take this, and again, I'll show you the dots. They have them on here. Okay, here it is. Yeah, right here. There's a dot there. Right here. There's going to be a dot on this one too, right there. And then that's how you line them up, how you meet them, and so you know your caps aren't mismatched. And you could drop them on the floor like I just did. That's really good for expensive parts. Really good for them. Lets you know that you're not a complete total idiot. But anyway, just again, run your bolts in so that we know they're not going anywhere. You're not going to lose your cap or your bearings or anything like that, even though you're going to replace your bearings. Just run them in so you don't lose anything. Just put them on so you ain't going to go nowhere. So, put that one aside too. Okay. This is pretty much it for this video on tearing it apart. I don't want to go too far into it. I went far enough into it. Next thing I would have to do is take the crank out, pull the flywheel off, pull all the coil brackets off, and that's pretty much over here. There's the flywheel, the bracketry, and everything. So it would be pulling both the coils off, 1 and 2, pulling the arc brackets off of the flywheel, and then actually pulling the flywheel off itself. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and pull the billet flywheel. 32 millimeter. Nut and the washer. Take that, put it to the side. After that, just start pulling your coils. Now I've had problems with these coil bolts that ARC sends you. So what I did is I used their bolts, but I changed their bolt heads, the nuts. I changed them to aircraft grade aluminum nuts. They're lock nuts, metal lock nuts. And these things do not move compared to the ones that ARC sent me. These do not move because I had a problem where the nuts were backing off and it was smacking into the flywheel, causing the magneto to spark on the flywheel, which ain't good. I spent $350 on a flywheel. Last thing I want is to damage the flywheel on something stupid like that. I also had to add washers to it because when they sit in the coil, the tighter you make them, the more they push down inside of it. They groove inside of it. So last thing I wanted was that to go right through. Now that one's out. Literally just pull your wires off. There's one coil. Take your coil, put it out of the way. Same thing with this one. But you want to turn the magnet out of your way. There we are. Pull your magnet, pull your wire out. There's another coil. Pull all that out. Now, the fun part of taking the flywheel off. So, I'm going to try something new. Alright, well I got the brackets off. I was going to try to get the flywheel off. To do that, you need some heat. Map torch. Usually works the best. No matter how much anti-seize you put on these things, this is still a cast iron hub. No matter how much anti-seize you put on these things, you're going to need air hammer. And you're going to need crowbar. Now, do not do this if you want to save parts on the motor. I do not. This motor's junk. So, flywheel's hot as hell because I just got it out. That is the flywheel. The Arc Aluminum Racing flywheel. Dirty, whole ring's changeable. I could pull this whole ring gear off and change out this ring gear. Everything looks good on it. I don't see no major damage. Just minor little scratches and dings. But the flywheel's still good. I'm going to reuse the flywheel. Put your flywheel aside. It's your most expensive piece. Now what you can do, pull your motor over, pull your crankshaft out, and I'm holding the hottest part of the fucking crank. So I just had a map torch on it. I used a hammer, I used a regular hammer, I used an air hammer, I used a pry bar, I used a bunch of things. I used a puller, didn't work. Sometimes you just gotta be really brutal with it. Crank looks good, there's some scoring to it. There's your oil galleys. Oil comes out of here. Got oil goes in. There you go. There's your crank. Will not reuse this. This is junk. So another piece to the puzzle. That's junk. Put that in your cart or whatever you have. And you have your block, your engine block. Your bare engine block. Except for this. If you want, you can pull this out. I don't really care for it. That's your bare Briggs & Stratton Intech engine block. This was an ELS series. It doesn't really make a difference. The only difference between the ELS series and a regular Intech is the black nitrate pistons and the oil pump. That's the only difference. Oil pump has more volume to the ELS. ELS means extended life series. See here, number 1, number 2. Your governor used to go here. You pop that off. There's a little circlip in there. You pop that out. You pull the whole thing out. Your governor is not active anymore. So that is my video of my racing engine teardown. That is everything. This motor is now junk. I'm now going to start a new build. That new build, for the first time ever, I will video it as I did with this video on how I'm putting it together and what I am doing to put it together and why. But that is it. More scrap metal, and then we have the cart full of all the pieces of engine. Rods, pistons, carburetor, air filter, crank, starter, billet flywheel, heads. Then I have some motors down there for cores. Those are good. So we'll figure out what I'm going to do. And thanks for watching. That was my teardown of my Intech 44 ELS racing motor.